Hello, Internet. If you're here watching right now, I'd like to welcome you back to the channel, and to the first episode of Jason Rex. This is a segment where I will be discussing 5 different albums from a broad genre, and I will be discussing each one and why you should listen to it. Because these are all albums that I think really shine in their own right, and come across as noteworthy in their respective subgenres. Today I will be discussing 5 different rock albums, from psych rock to dream pop to punk rock. I hope you enjoy, and I hope from this video you find something to listen to and to fill up all your time while you are self-quarantining in this uncertain and stressful time. I hope you enjoy. Without further ado, let's jump straight into these records. The first of the 5 records is called Conduit by a new dream pop indie pop band called MACHINEGUM. This record is fairly recent. It was released on December 8th, 2019, so just in the last 3 or 4 months. It is characterized by its lush, sweeping synths and vocals. Very much reminds me of a band from the likes of MGMT, honestly, or The Wild Nothing. Now, I didn't know this at the time when I found the record, but as I was researching for this video, I actually found out that this is in fact a side project of none other than Fabrizio Moretti, the drummer from The Strokes, one of our favorite indie rock legends. Moreover, the production on this thing is done by Jake Aaron and Andrew Mowry, who helped produce the Snail Mail record and Rah Rah Riot's music, respectively. This album is truly an indie dream. It's populated with lush synths that pull together the sweeping vocals and washy percussion. Each song has its own emotional progression that is brought to life with peppy instrumentals that seem a bit burdened by this lower level of a deeper sadness. Ultimately, I love this album because it's one that you can play around the house at full blast, dancing around from room to room, or you can have it playing softly in the background while you relax in bed or on the couch with a good book, or just as background music while you work. I really think there's something here for everyone. The instrumentals on each song really fill your ears, and each song is a surprisingly fulfilling listen, adding up to a full experience that leaves you wanting even more. Additionally, the percussion is very well done, as you would expect from a member of The Strokes. Each composition takes you for a turn that you're not quite expecting, and to me, that is what makes this an extremely engaging listen. I'd say my favorite tracks on this thing would be Deep Red, Right Away, that was one of my favorites, Sugar and Vice, and Oh Please as well. If you like MGMT, if you like The Strokes, if you like dream indie pop, I'd definitely check out Conduit by MACHINEGUM. The second album that I want to talk about today is called Kids in the Night by alternative rockers Weathers. This was actually released a couple years ago, July 22nd, 2018. I'm sorry, June 22nd, 2018. That month makes all the difference, I know. This is all straight up alternative rock slash pop rock, if you will. This is an LA-based band that takes influences from older rockers such as The Cure, The Pixies, and The Killers as well. I especially hear The Killers influences. I hear a lot of modern alternative rock influence as well, if you're familiar with bands like Dreamers, Vinyl Theater, Honey, even Walk the Moon. But these guys are very much guitar and drum based rather than an overusage of synthesizers and electronic effects, which I really like because they create their own sound surprisingly well using just the instruments that they have. To me, alternative rock has been kind of taking a couple different directions. There's the alternative rock that is really synth-laden and leaning towards pop music, and then there's the alternative rock that's going towards the guitar and drums that kind of leaves the electronic bits behind, but is still coming up with these pop melodies, pop tropes, and hooks that really get in your ear and don't go away. And a lot of these bands are kind of sounding the same to me, very similar, and it's hard for me to differentiate between them, which is why usually with these social media ads, I tend to just go past them. And yes, while Weathers did fulfill some of those expectations that I already had, they went above and beyond. These guys are almost on the verge of pop punk, dare I say, but the thing that really caught my eye is their special attention to mental illness on this thing. Lyrically, this band covers a lot of topics of mental illness, like feeling lonely, not knowing who to talk to, not being motivated, different coping mechanisms, some good, some bad. I really liked the way they delved deep into their own psyche in ways that I found very relatable. These songs seemed like a way for the band to make themselves feel less lonely while dealing with these issues, and in doing that, I felt a lot less lonely while I was listening to them. While Weathers do have a very, very recognizable alternative rock sound, alternative core, dare I say, this album is surprisingly diverse. Each song has its very own personality, a very different melody, and it's very catchy in its own unique way. And they do this while actually keeping their core sound and instrumentation very consistent. I loved how each song on this album brought its own mood and imagery, while also tackling its own issue on the album's core theme of mental illness. Although it's covering some serious issues, these tunes are upbeat, motivating, and surprisingly refreshing. The riffs and melodies are fun, memorable, and surprisingly infectious. Each member brings a highly energetic performance to this record that keeps you engaged in listening and wondering what's next throughout the entire duration of the record. I might have to say that I think this is one of the best alternative rock, alternative pop records from the last few years. There's a lot of tracks on this one that I like because they're all so unique in their own way. But if I had to pick, I'd say some of my favorite tracks are Casual Mondays, 1983, Shallow Water, and the closing track, Secrets Safe With Me. That's one of the best closers I've heard on any album ever. Probably in my top 10 album closers of all time. Kids in the Night by Weathers. Make sure you check this one out. My third album on my list today is one that might appeal to some of you country fans, but if you like rock music as well, there's something you don't want to miss here. This is an album called The Black Dirt Sessions by road rock band Deer Tick. This is a very smooth blend of genres like alt-rock, folk, blues, and country. The band does a very good job of combining all these together into their own very unique sound, and throughout the record, this tone can change without really straying too far from the album's overall mood. This record is a little bit older than my other picks. This one was released almost 10 years ago on June 8th, 2010. They have had other newer records since then, but from what I've heard, this is the record that I like the most, and I think it's the best record to start with when exploring Deer Tick. The band's sound is largely characterized by John J. McCauley's rough, gruff, emotional, very raw vocal performances. Now, for you hardcore country fans, don't expect a country twang on this thing. Instead, I would listen for McCauley's toned-down songwriting, akin to punk rock legends such as Nirvana, The Replacements, and even the Beastie Boys. It doesn't sound quite like those bands, but you can definitely hear his influences, and the band has actually done entire cover shows just of Nirvana playing In Utero in full. Where you do hear those bands' influences is in McCauley's emotional vocals, as well as the band's very heavy and drawn-out songwriting style. This album, The Black Dirt Sessions, actually scored the band a label with Fargo Records, and the group went on to record another 5 records after that, including their most recent, Mayonnaise, to add to their current 8-disc discography. The songwriting on this album is isolating, sometimes disorienting, and extremely emotional. McCauley writes of love, loss, and sadness, yet musically he maintains a glimmer of hope that remains throughout the record for the duration of its runtime. If you're prepared to be vulnerable for a very fulfilling listen, I highly recommend checking out the Black Dirt Sessions. I would say this record is for you if you enjoy softer alternative rock, blues, classic country music, or even punk. My favorite tracks on this thing would have to be 20 Miles, Mange, and Christ Jesus, which is the closer, and it's a very, very emotional closer. It almost makes me cry every time I hear it. Check this one out. I don't think you'll be disappointed. All right, moving on to the 4th record on this list. I'm really excited to talk about this one, and this is actually the newest record as well. It just came out this year on February 7th, 2020. This is a post-punk, glam punk, experimental rock band called HMLTD. The album is West of Eden, and it's their debut from a new record label. This one, I admit, I found this by watching The Needle Drop. He loved this one. I think he gave it an 8 or something, and I've been obsessed with it ever since. And I gotta admit, this record caught me off guard in a very good way. I'm gonna recommend you check this one out if you're feeling edgy, weird, badass, angry, adventurous, or all of the above. This band's sound is a bit hard to pinpoint, actually. At first, this record starts off very straightforward with a driving punk rock sound, but soon the band fuses in a surprising amount of 80s glam rock influence. They probe the likes of Ziggy Stardust-era Bowie, as well as other 80s experimental rock and punk and pop acts such as Midnight Oil. Even glimpses of EDM, synth pop, and new age can be found throughout this album's many layers of sound. But the use of unconventional songwriting and weird vocal effects and samples especially warrant a full listen through of this album to really soak in everything that the experience has to offer. It will surely take you on a journey across driving, danceable, beautiful, and even unsettling soundscapes. Now, these sounds work very well with the album's commentary on what they put as the dying West. It's this critique on an ecologically sick, aging society where sex is commodified and masculinity is grossly categorized. In frontman Henry Spichalski's words, he said, "We've always tried to present an alternative version of masculinity, which doesn't fall under the queer umbrella, but is certainly different from the toxic version of masculinity which underlies patriarchy, a kinder, more creative, less violent one." And I actually really agree with that, and I think that's a very brave and important step to take, and something that society as a whole needs to examine from the outside. I know I'm going a lot longer on this one, but I just love this record so much. There's so much to talk about. What I really love about this record, honestly, is its flexibility. One moment you have the opening track's driving punk rock groove, and the second track's dance punk sort of catchiness, and then halfway through the album, all of a sudden you're getting this jeering guitar on the track Where's Joanna? And then in the second act of the album, you have this infectious dancey track called Nobody Stays in Love. This thing is versatile, fresh, and very creative. My favorite tracks on this one include Loaded, Mikey's Song, and Where's Joanna? I think that given the right chance, any fan of rock music will find something to jam to on this record. Alright, this brings us to album number 5, Psych Rock. So have you heard of this band called Tame Impala? They're pretty underground. They're kind of weird. I don't know if you've heard of them. There's another band that is also closely entwined with Tame Impala. They work on a lot of stuff together, and that band is called Pond. On March 1st, 2019, Pond put out their most recent record called Tasmania. This is a beautiful psychedelic rock record that would be a great listen for any fan of Tame Impala. What especially caught my attention was the beautiful album art. It's a rainbow. It's a rainbow. Pond formed in Australia in the year 2008, and as I mentioned earlier, they've been heavily intertwined with Kevin Parker of Tame Impala. Now, when I first started listening to Pond, I heard that Pond is the band that performs with Kevin Parker when Tame Impala performs live. But it's actually a little deeper than that. Each group has played an important role in each other's acts for years. Yeah, members from Pond play as Kevin Parker's live band when he plays as Tame Impala, but also Kevin used to be even a part of Pond, and he still to this day produces for them, and believe it or not, helped produce Tasmania. This can easily be heard in the group's aesthetic, as you can pick out the same washy, trippy, quirky sounds that we have come to love about Tame Impala. And it's not just the album art that drew me into this record. The sounds and effects on this thing are just as colorful as the cover. This album contains vastly imaginative production and songwriting, from flashy, vibrant synths to driving, thumping bass lines to mind-expanding drum breakdowns. Dare I say, if you took the psych pop influences from Tame Impala's 2015 hit record Currents, cranked up the saturation a bit on the album's color and contrast, I think you'd get something that sounds a lot like Tasmania. Each song builds itself into this three-dimensional canvas of multi-layered sound effects, vocal hooks, and cascading instrumentals that climax into some seriously infectious beats. There are some points on this record that are just flat out awe-inspiring as the music opens up a window into this colorful, mystical, almost surreal world that they call Tasmania.
That's a real place.
I love the compositions that made it onto this record and how they are brought to life by clever and thought-provoking lyrics as well as beautiful performances, especially by the current drummer, James Ireland. There's moments on this thing that are just gonna make you want to get up, dance around the house, go for a run, go for a drive, go conquer the world. This thing at points just seems larger than life. So I recommend this record to any fan of Tame Impala, or just psych rock in general, or marijuana. Let this be your soundtrack to hiking, chilling, cooking, driving, or really anything. My favorite tracks on this one would be definitely The Boys Are Killing Me, Hand Mouth Dancer, and Burnout Star. You gotta listen to them for the full duration of these tracks, even though some of them are long, as much as 8 minutes. Time well spent, in my opinion. Well, that's all the albums that I have for you today. I hope I piqued your interest with one of them, maybe 2 of them, or all of them, who knows. Let me know in the comments if you listen to them, what you think, or if you have any suggestions for me. I love finding new music all the time, and I'll give you a shout out if I feature an album that you introduced to me on a video. I also want to do a quick plug really fast for my Spotify. I am starting to make these playlists that I'm going to be updating on a current basis. They're just going to be like updated playlists, similar to what Spotify does actually, but mine are going to be shorter. I'm going to keep them to around an hour length. I only have one made right now that I've made with that purpose, and it's called Indie Fog. The link will be down in the description to the Spotify playlist, and it features a lot of new and mystical, maybe a little sad sounding indie tracks. We have some new cuts from The Strokes that are really great. I'm looking forward to that album coming out. Dream pop, maybe even some songs from the records that I covered today. I'm updating this playlist, so if you're feeling like listening to some indie music on a foggy day, check out the playlist. You might like it. Thanks for tuning in today, guys. Please like if you liked the video, dislike it if you disliked it, as always, and subscribe. Subscriptions are good, and it's free. Alright, I'll shut up. Go listen to some music, go eat a hot dog. Actually, don't eat a banana, it's healthier, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.